What?
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 So what?
What?
What does T-Rex mean?
What does T-Rex mean?
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 The T-Rex mean?
Does T-Rex mean?
Does Tyrannosaurus Rex mean to me?
To you.
To me.
To you.
To me.
To you.
To me.
To me. To me.
Tyrannosaurus Rex, the tyrant lizard king. Its name has been etched into the human psyche so strongly that it single-handedly represents an entire class of animals, the dinosaur. October 4th saw its 120th birthday, and I've been celebrating since October 1st. The celebrations are far from over, but right now I think we need to get to the bottom of the question, what does T-Rex mean to you? Tyrannosaurus Rex is the label given to a species of giant theropod dinosaur that appeared 72.7 million years ago and went out with the other non-avian dinosaurs 66 million years ago. It's now known from well over 100 total specimens, ranging from singular toe bones to almost complete skeletons, and from hatchling to elder. It may have reached as much as or even larger than 45 feet in length, 13 feet in height, and 9 tons in weight. Those figures are of course tentative, as experts and amateurs alike test their mathematical might against the various bones of the dinosaur skeleton. Tyrannosaurus Rex was described in 1905, and since then it has become the staple of what a dinosaur is, due to being such a large and relatively completely known carnivorous dinosaur found so early on in paleontological history. Though plenty of giant theropod dinosaurs have been found since Tyrannosaurus Rex's description that reach it or very slightly surpass it in X, Y, or Z dimensions, the Tyrant Lizard King still remains as one of the biggest. Tyrannosaurus Rex has appeared in pop culture almost since its very description. It evokes a great many things to a great many people. Raw power, the tenacity of nature, money, greed, experimentation in nature, a window into the earth and life sciences, and much more. To me, Tyrannosaurus Rex is the perfect tool. It's got a lot of neat traits crammed into its skeleton. It has some old traits that it shares with all of its dinosaur cousins, but it also has a lot of unique and advanced traits that many other dinosaur groups don't. It even shares some traits with birds, which diverged from the theropod tree before the tyrannosaurs were really around. Remember what I said about it having over 100 specimens known? That's relatively unheard of for most dinosaurs, especially giant theropod dinosaurs. T-Rex is so damn cool that it sparked a frenzy of people scouring Wyoming, Montana, North and South Dakota for Tyrannosaurus remains for about a century. All that excitement and activity cannot be rallied for other giant theropods. Tyrannosaurus also sparks the imagination due to how weird it is. It has those tiny arms, but they were very strong and had sharp claws. But it also had a giant fused skull with blunted bone-crushing teeth. It wasn't slicing hunks of flesh off prey like most other giants, and it wasn't piking fish from the water like those other giants. It's weird. It's common and taken for granted, overrated even, but it's still pretty dang weird. Enough of what I have to say for what it means to me. Why don't we see what others in the science communication, paleo, and paleoart communities have to say?
What I think T-Rex means to me is sheer strength and power. This is the biggest, heaviest, bulkiest predatory animal ever to exist on the planet. The one with the strongest bite force aside from the megalodon. So that's the first thing that I see. It's just sheer strength and power and bulk. The second thing I see is elegance and grace in its parental habits. We all know that dinosaurs have good parental habits similar to that of modern birds, and more importantly, crocodiles. And that's where the elegance and grace comes from.
Like, throughout the years, T-Rex is the dinosaur that has grown more onto me. Like, I love dinosaurs in general, but T-Rex just feels special. And that's kind of weird since most people would agree that it is the most overused dinosaur, but it's kind of like a comment I saw once on a YouTube short by TheDinoFax put it. There are people who have T-Rex as their favorite dinosaur because they know way too little about dinosaurs, and there are people who have T-Rex as their favorite dinosaur because they know enough dinosaurs to know that T-Rex is the coolest one, and I think I just agree with that. T-Rex it perfectly encapsulates the wonders of the earth, of science and evolution into one animal. It's the biggest predator to ever walk the earth that we know of currently. And I think it's so great that we can come here and celebrate its 120 years of description. I think that is really cool.
Well, ignoring the literal definition of the genus and species name, to me, Tyrannosaurus rex means the duality of an apex predator. A powerful, destructive hunter that nothing could ever bring down, but also a placid, intelligent giant that's aware that it's not invincible. Every animal has a kind of two-sided personality, but arguably few have one as intriguing as the Tyrant Lizard King.
Ever since I first learned about Tyrannosaurus rex, I've been completely captivated. There was just something awe-inspiring about this colossal predator. The largest, the most powerful land carnivore to ever live. The sheer force of its bite, its dominance at the top of the Cretaceous food chain. It was like nothing else that ever walked the earth. That first spark of fascination never left me. T-Rex wasn't just a dinosaur. It was the creature that pulled me into paleontology and set me on the path I'm on today. I've even had the chance to see Titus, Trix, and Tristan, and even the lower jaw of Dinosaurs in person, and standing before those fossils only deepened my awe. So, as we celebrate Tyrannosaurus Rex's 120th birthday during the Tyrannothon, I just want to say thank you, T-Rex, for showing us the power, mystery, and wonder of ancient life. Long live the king, long live the prize fighter of antiquity.
Ultimately, T-Rex is an inspiration. My passion for science started when I was very young, when I first learned about dinosaurs, and T-Rex quickly became my favorite dinosaur. That passion absolutely influenced my decision to become a high school biology teacher, as well as my hobby of 3D printing dinosaurs. T-Rex was always at the center of these decisions. My life would be in a very different place without this animal. Ultimately, T-Rex is an inspiration for me, and I'm assuming countless others.
So what does T-Rex mean to me? Well, a lot of things. It was my childhood favorite dinosaur, and it captured my imagination as a kid, playing with toys, watching movies and stuff, and that core passion and that love for paleontology and the natural world. A lot of it came from how I view T-Rex, and the particular version of T-Rex that I grew up seeing for the first time was the one at the Denver Museum, the one that's like, amazing mount, and that really captured my imagination. That appreciation for the natural world and paleontology, a lot of it stemmed from, wow, T-Rex is amazing. And that passion and love that I have for paleontology, it brought me through a lot of hardship. And it led me to all of the amazing opportunities that I've had over the years and the amazing people that I've met, and brought me to where I am now, and I'm finally getting to study theropod dinosaurs.
Okay, here's the thing, Destin. I love T-Rex. I adore T-Rex. But it's not an Allosauroid, and I love Allosauroids so much more. Please don't hate me for that.
Well, I might have T-Rex to thank for why I love dinosaurs in the first place. I don't exactly know how I developed my love for dinosaurs. I was very young when it officially sparked in my mind that, hey, these giant reptiles are cool. But I know for a time that T-Rex was my favorite dinosaur. I'm sure like many other kids growing up, it's easily the most famous dinosaur, appearing in all kinds of books, movies, documentaries, and several toys. Like I had a lot of T-Rex toys. And while it might be a little bit overrepresented in media today, that still doesn't really speak against just how amazing this animal is. It's an animal that once existed, and that in and of itself is absolutely amazing. It's an incredibly well-researched dinosaur that has had many discoveries over the years that just kind of like paint a really amazing picture of just a very cool animal. It's still one of my favorite dinosaurs today. It might not be number one to me, but it still is very high up on my list because it's just look at it. And so even though a lot of people do consider it to be overrated nowadays, I still think that it's a very important dinosaur that probably helps a lot of people love dinosaurs. And I think that by itself is just really cool.
Tyrannosaurus Rex is by all means the ambassador dinosaur, the cultural representative of the specific majesty and grandeur that every member of its clade possesses and that humanity so desperately seeks to hold on to. From my perspective as an artist and as someone who never stopped being infatuated with dinosaurs, T-Rex, to me, is the embodiment of that impossible dream. That dream where unencumbered by time or by circumstance, I can actually see a dinosaur. And because of its ubiquity in our culture, we've learned such a great deal about Tyrannosaurus Rex. And we've seen it portrayed, sometimes with breathtaking realism, in movies and TV, and of course, in brilliant works of paleo art. And yet, despite it all, despite the constant research and measurements, the squabbles over integument and muscle density, despite the unending love that we throw at this creature that will never know that it is loved, there will always be that uncertainty. T-Rex, along with the rest of the lost dinosaurs, will always be as tangible to us as a mental image. We will never truly know them. And yet, this is where our incessant love of T-Rex unveils our own humanity. We can never see the dinosaurs as they lived. We could never witness how they carried their titanic bodies across fields of ferns, or how they grew across decades. But we want to. We want to. We are dedicated to this reality that we never knew. And millions have fallen in love with animals only preserved by chance. The fact that we have this capacity to love, that we have this capacity to love the natural world, even in the face of extinction, should inspire hope. T-Rex reminds us of the heights nature can soar to when given the time and space to thrive. And while seeing T-Rex may continue to be an impossible dream, it may remind us to extend our love and dedication to the tangible life that surrounds us today. That is what T-Rex means to me. Happy birthday, big guy.
I think it's one of my main inspirations for paleo art, and just like my imagination as a kid. I would get into media because of their T-Rexes, just like everybody else. Maybe more into it because it's big. And something about the little arms with the 2 fingers made it otherworldly, where like maybe Giganotosaurus wasn't as polarizing for me. I just love T-Rex. It's huge, bulky, weird. We know a lot about it, but there's still so many things that we're not sure about its lifestyle. You know, like, did it live in groups? I don't know. I like to imagine it and I like to draw it. So T-Rex just means inspiration to me.
If we were ever somehow able to resurrect Tyrannosaurus Rex from the depths of primordial hell, they'd have to break out the cattle prods just to keep me out of its enclosure. And yet, I guarantee you, I'd still find a way to get the Harambe treatment. For me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, T-Rex was the gateway dinosaur to paleontology. It's what sparked my love for prehistory. What I find most fascinating about this animal is that it was so massive, so powerful, so dangerous that to us humans, it's basically an alien. There is literally nothing alive today that even comes close to replicating its biological stats. And even among other giant theropod dinosaurs, T-Rex really was in a league of its own. To me, it's a great example of nature producing something that is just as terrifying and awe-inspiring as anything that Hollywood has ever shat out. At the end of the day, there's a very good reason why T-Rex is the world's favorite dinosaur. And if you're one of those people who thinks the Tyrant Lizard King is overhyped, well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you a bozo. And that's about it.
As quote-unquote overused as it is in pop culture and media, I think its status as the ultimate predator is well deserved, and if anything, it is not overrated.
To me, as a science educator, Tyrannosaurus Rex is just about the perfect teaching tool you could have asked for. I mean, what other animal practically has its own marketing built into it? And there's just so much uniqueness and distinctiveness to appreciate with so many great discoveries found over the years. It really opens the door to understanding other dinosaurs and getting people's attention on those sorts of topics. Whether it's comparing other giant predators directly to it, like Giganotosaurus, or some of its relatives like Tarbosaurus that combine with Tyrannosaurus to give us such an in-depth knowledge of its growth history and evolutionary life. And back to its ancestors like Guanlong, there's just so much to appreciate and admire with so much great work done on the subject that work can then extend to appreciation of other dinosaurs too. So Tyrannosaurus Rex, I think, makes for a perfect frontman to just the entirety of Dinosauria and understanding prehistory as a whole. I don't think there's a single paleontologist that went on to do great things that didn't like T-Rex as a kid, and that can extend to everything else that once lived.
Tyrannosaurus Rex is easily the world's most famous and popular dinosaur, and for good reason. With a massive brain, intense jaw strength, giant body size, I mean, it's everybody's worst nightmare and what everybody would like to be its best friend. But that's not actually why I love T-Rex. I actually love T-Rex because it's a gateway. It brings people into the sciences. Everybody loves T-Rex, which means everybody has a doorway through T-Rex into the wonderful world of natural history. T-Rex, for me, was my favorite when I was a kid, but it acted as a jumping off point. Now, I love all of nature and all of natural history and all of our planet, and I guess I can thank T-Rex for that if I go back far enough in my life. Thanks, T-Rex. I guess that's why I like you.
For me, T-Rex is nature and science incarnate. Nature in the sense that it is the culmination of all the unadulterated raw power and ferocity of nature, but also its majesty and beauty combined into one animal. Science in the sense that we've known this animal for 120 years. We know a lot about it. It's practically the Drosophila of Dinosauria, a model species. But it's also a bit of a mystery. It's still a bit of a mystery in the sense that there's still a lot left that we don't know. And that it's the perfect entryway for learning about the natural world, ecosystems, evolution, environmental geology, among a variety of other things. And it also represents a little bit of perseverance, especially with me as an early career paleontologist. And just as a Tyrannosaurus keeps getting injured and still, carries on, it has told me to basically persevere through life no matter what horrible things may come your way. That you just pick yourself up and carry on. But yeah, that's what T-Rex means to me. Happy birthday, T-Rex. Here's to another 120 years.
Me, it means the ultimate dinosaur, the face of all dinosaur paleontology, one of the best theropod dinosaurs. It's just an incredible animal to admire.
It's been 120 years since T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus Rex, was officially described and released, as you can say, to the world. And since then, it has just fascinated everyone who has ever had any sort of interest in the prehistoric times. If you were to ask any group of kids what their favorite dinosaur is, odds are the majority of them are probably going to say T-Rex, just because it's just such an amazing and iconic animal that represents what life used to be like before we arrived. For me, T-Rex represents our learning of the ancient past and how life was like back then. It represents our drive to know what life was like back then. It represents just our need to understand our world and the history of the world. It represents my passion to an extent. Like, I really, really like whales, especially. I mean, you can see the shirt. And I really like, prehistoric life. And while T-Rex isn't necessarily my favorite dinosaur, it's definitely one of those that I consider to be such a big part of why I like prehistoric life and talking about what life was like back then. It represents my drive. To an extent, it represents my drive of wanting to understand prehistoric life and learn more about it, as well as my desire to educate others about that prehistoric life. And maybe I'm going too deep into it because I didn't really think about this until I started working on this, but it's definitely one of those creatures that I hold close to myself because it reflects what I was like as a kid, because I can't say T-Rex was my favorite as a kid, but it was definitely up there because of its depictions in paleo art and the books that I would read about dinosaurs and, of course, the media at the time. T-Rex has been on screen for so long, and it's always been there when you make a show or a movie about prehistoric life, especially revolving around dinosaurs, but also just the monster aspect of the media world. I mean, we had King Kong fighting T-Rex, and King Kong was kind of the start of, monster films and big kaiju-like-esque films. And, he was fighting T-Rex, and, we've had cowboys chasing and wrangling T-Rex or whatever that one particular film was that I never watched, and I've only seen ones from a Bill Nye show. But it's always been there. And then, of course, Jurassic Park comes out and just modernizes it, and it's such a good representation of what we as people have looked to when talking about and just making content and media and just discussions about prehistoric life. But the biggest thing that T-Rex holds for me is nature and evolution and the brutality that can come out of that. And when I say brutality, I'm not talking about like actual brutality and, you know, like maliciousness or anything similar to that. I'm talking about just on an evolutionary level, nothing came close. This was a 40-foot, 10-ton predator that didn't, like other predators, rely on like grappling its prey to the ground or, you know, running it down. This was an animal that just got its prey through sheer brute force through its bite, which was one of the most powerful bites in the world today and in the past. For me, T-Rex can kind of represent just the peak of animal evolution to an extent. There isn't really like a peak of evolution. Like evolution is a constantly changing process. There is no better way of doing something at the end of the day. There's the way that works for you and your species. But you gotta make an argument that T-Rex is the pinnacle of evolution to an extent. I might be sounding repetitive, but it's an animal that had near perfect senses. It had an amazing sense of smell. It had obscenely good eyesight. I know, Jurassic Park had to nerf him a little bit by saying it could only see you if you're moving. This thing could see anything and everything from like miles away. It was literally the perfect predator. T-Rex represents our drive to learn more. It represents our love of animals and life and what life was like way back before we existed. It represents our love of the monster flicks and the world of media revolving around, a big scary reptilian-like animal. It represents so many different things. The passion of kids with dinosaurs, the passion of paleontologists, the passion of some content creators like myself and others who make content around these animals and discuss this stuff. And it most importantly just represents nature's drive and nature's desire to survive and dominate its environment.
Well, I've been obsessed with dinosaurs ever since I can remember, ever since I was a child. It all started when I saw The Land Before Time in theaters with my parents. And I just remember seeing the sharp tooth and what an absolute menace it was on screen, where it would just terrorize the main cast, and that was it. I just absolutely fell in love with dinosaurs. Then, about 3-4 years later, my parents took me to the American Museum of Natural History, and I saw the T-Rex for the first time, AMNH 5027. That skeleton, of course, was mounted incorrectly at the time. It was very erect, but that led to just it looking absolutely menacing, just towering over me, just such a big animal, and just made me wonder, like, what would it be like to be in the presence of something like that? Just the sheer terror of seeing something that big, just looking at you, the fear of having it breathing as it's like staring you down, the just amazement and awe, just absolutely mesmerizing. And because of that, T-Rex has been the main figure point for the covers for my book series. So the first one is the little infant in the egg there. And then the second one in the series are the little baby T-Rexes, just hatched in the nest, sitting there, waiting for mom to feed them. Third one, I'm in the process of writing. Don't have that yet, but that'll be a juvenile Rex. And just what a better way to honor the most terrifying creature to ever walk the earth than immortalizing it in something that's very dear to my heart. So T-Rex is just an amazing animal, and it's always going to just captivate the minds of everyone that it comes in contact with. And I'm happy to be able to have the chance to honor it today.
As a child, I obviously loved T-Rex. It was one of the biggest and most ferocious land predators of all time, after all, but I never truly cared about Tyrannosaurus, because I found it pretty basic, and was just more interested in other more quote-unquote interesting dinos, such as Spinosaurus, Carnotaurus, etc. But as an adult, I see the T-Rex as the gate leading past, present, and future generations into the field of vertebrate paleontology. It's a deceptively basic animal that helps newbies get familiar with the field and lets experts dig their teeth into the biggest land predator in Earth's history.
T-Rex is a dinosaur that's a huge part of my childhood because T-Rex is what sparked my fascination towards dinosaurs and other prehistoric forms of life, and T-Rex helped me to find a part of myself that I never knew I ever had. So if it wasn't for T-Rex, then I wouldn't have been a paleo nerd in the first place. And this is the reason T-Rex has earned the title of my favorite dinosaur. Because T-Rex has inspired a lot of people to discover the prehistoric world, to learn more about the prehistoric world. And that is why these majestic, cool animals have earned my respect. So happy 120th anniversary, T-Rex.
For me, Tyrannosaurus is a great example of how quickly paleontology has been evolving in the last century. For instance, I grew up in a time when a lot of depictions of Tyrannosaurus rex, whether that be in paleo art or in paleo media, were mostly following what was seen in Jurassic Park, which at the time wasn't a bad design, but when you take a look at Tyrannosaurus now, it's like night and day. And growing up in a state where Tyrannosaurus fossils have been found, you tend to see a lot of cast replicas of T-Rex skeletons, or skulls, or even teeth all over the place. I feel like I've seen about a dozen Tyrannosaurus cast replicas. And despite having seen all of these different cast replicas, I think the one thing that really made me click for Tyrannosaurus rex and made me appreciate it on a deeper level was an experience I had a few years ago. I had visited the Denver Museum of Nature and Science to see the Sue the T-Rex Experience traveling exhibit. Now, the way that this exhibit was set up, I think really drove this home for me, but the way that it was set up was that you walk straight through the doors. Directly across from you is a mural of the Hell Creek Formation, of the flora and fauna within, and then directly to your left is the Blue Rhino Studios Sue model. And this is one of the most impressively realistic and lifelike reconstructions of any extinct animal I have ever seen. I've seen plenty of models and animatronics of dinosaurs, but the detail and the overall size of this sculpture made it feel like there was an actual Tyrannosaurus standing in the room and looking you in the eyes. And what made this particular model so impressive to me is that, seeing skeletons, it gives you a good idea of the overall size of the animal. Like, you can tell the height and the overall length. But once you start adding muscle and fat and skin and other tissues, you really start to see the shape take form. And you start to see what used to be, if you'll pardon my pun, skin and bones on Tyrannosaurus replicas to this big, hulking, heavy creature that is depicted with mass to it. You can see the foot pads compressing down with the weight of this animal in the actual model. And because T-Rex is kind of a jumping off point for most people who are interested in learning about dinosaurs, having this big change in depiction is really something special. It shows that people are willing to learn and that science is continuing to evolve even when we've had entirely complete skeletons of the animal for about 20-30 years at this point. We know exactly what this animal's skeleton looks like, but we're still learning more about it every single day.
contrary to what the internet wants you to believe on how T-Rex is the most overrated and overrepresented dinosaur/prehistoric animal of all time, and the sensationalism that gets in the way also doesn't help. And while I do agree that, yes, T-Rex is overrated and overrepresented, especially among Dinosauria, still though, it is so overrated that somehow it becomes underrated because you fail to appreciate the legacy of Tyrannosaurus Rex and how our changing of not only T-Rex and its kin have changed, but really our perception of Dinosauria and evolution as a whole. And really, Tyrannosaurus Rex it's like that one friend that you've known since your childhood, since the very beginning. T-Rex has always been there, and even when you and your friend have changed over as time goes on, your friend is still there, still standing, just like day one. For as long as I've been fascinated by dinosaurs, I've always been familiar with Tyrannosaurus Rex. It all started the moment I was introduced by the Jurassic Park arcade from Chuck E. Cheese when I was like 6 years old. I've seen people being chased by that Tyrannosaurus Rex, and while it was a little scary, it was so intriguing. And really, if it wasn't for that arcade, I wouldn't be passionate for paleontology, I wouldn't be a geology major at my community college, and I wouldn't be a museum intern and now an active volunteer at a museum of paleontology if it weren't for that arcade that happened to have T-Rex in it. Like I've said before, I've been familiar with Tyrannosaurus Rex, and I've had many dinosaur toys. This being one of them by Imaginext, and believe me, the batteries still work. Over the recent years, I've also been pursuing in paleo art, especially as an amateur paleo artist who's done many works within the recent years, and one of those works was an art assignment that I worked on, and it's this guy. This handsome fella. And of course it's Tyrannosaurus Rex, because it's Tyrannothon. And really, despite the disdain of how overrepresented Tyrannosaurus Rex is, you just can't deny the impact it has made on millions of people, myself included, and you cannot dethrone the true king of the dinosaurs.
It all comes back to this toy right here. My grandfather in Brazil gave this to me when I was very, very young, among my oldest memories, I believe. In fact, I was so young, I chewed off the very tip of the face there, the rostrum, for your anatomy. So as this was my absolute favorite toy, it spiraled into just liking dinosaurs in general, with walking with dinosaurs right there. And as such, that in turn spiraled to so many other avenues of my life. For example, art, studying anatomy and such. And that inspiring me to go in the direction of animation as well. So many aspects of my life all derive from here, and it all comes from the base. It's like the tree of life, like a cladogram. It just goes boom in this direction, that direction, and going so far as to studying under Dr. Thomas Holtz, as I am now, who you will see in this video as well, and it's that's what T-Rex means to me. It's the base of so much of the direction my life has gone.
Hello, I'm the dinosaur hunter for Epoch Now, and the question, what does T-Rex mean to me, is one that is very close to my heart. This animal is the major reason as to why I became interested in and decided to pursue a career in paleontology. I remember once having the opportunity to see a cast cast replica of Sue the T-Rex up close. And the immense size and that tyrannical visage was mesmerizing to me. And I think it's quite possibly one of the most intriguing animals known to science. I believe Tyrannosaurus Rex is one of those creatures that paves the way for people to be interested in not just extinct animals, but also animals that still walk among us today. I've always been a fan of Tyrannosaurus Rex, and without it, I'm not sure whether or not I would have grown to have such an immense passion or for learning more and more about dinosaurs and other extinct animals in general. It really cements into the imagination of the whole world what a dinosaur truly is. An ancient reptile from this bygone age that was in every sense of the phrase, larger than life.
Thoughts on Nanotyrannus versus Juvenile T-Rex?
Ooh, yes. I will say the story of Nanotyrannus is not settled, and I will say it is not settled either direction. So there is, at present, in the research pipeline, this information has been presented at conferences, but it hasn't gone through peer review, or if it's gone through peer review, it hasn't been published yet. Some potential lines of evidence that do support Nanotyrannus as perhaps being distinct from Tyrannosaurus Rex. That said, at present, we have yet to find what would be, to me, and I've stated this since the late 1990s or early aughts, the definitive information we need to overturn or accept that hypothesis. And that would be either an adult specimen of Nanotyrannus, which is definitively not Tyrannosaurus Rex, which we do not yet have, because every specimen so far that's been assigned to Nano is non-adult, or a juvenile Tyrannosaurus, which is the same age at time of death as the Nanotyrannus specimens, which is distinctly not Nanotyrannus. Because if we add that, then we say, aha, these are two different forms. And so then that would say, okay, we could reject the hypothesis that they're the same. At present, we don't have that information, and that to me would really clinch it. But we'll see. Those discoveries could potentially be made. So until then, and bearing in mind there's other types of information coming out, the simplest solution, the most parsimonious solution, is if we have one type of dinosaur which is clearly a tyrannosaurid and almost assuredly a tyrannosaurine tyrannosaur from the same formations as Tyrannosaurus Rex, and it's occupying an age state that is distinct from all the other Tyrannosaurus specimens we have. The simplest solution, the one that requires a fewest assumption, is that it is the middle of the ontogeny. It's the middle of that growth curve. But I could be wrong. And I'll just throw this out as an additional side. There are people who have suggested that there are multiple species in what we now call Tyrannosaurus Rex, and that it might be 2 or 3 different species. Some people have proposed Tyrannosaurus regina and Tyrannosaurus, Imperator. It's noteworthy that so far, all the Nanotyrannus specimens are from the lower part of the Hell Creek, which, for those people who say that there are multiple species of Tyrannosaurus Rex, is not when Tyrannosaurus Rex lived. So it could be that Nanotyrannus is a juvenile, but a juvenile not of T.rex, but of Tyrannosaurus Imperator. And ironically, if that's true, then we lose the name Imperator, and that species becomes Tyrannosaurus lancensis, which would be cool. So as you can see, it's not a simple solution. We don't have the definitive evidence yet, but it is a fascinating field of study.
Extinct by the end of the Triassic period.
During the Jurassic period and Cretaceous period, the dinosaurs evolved into various adaptive types, many of which reached colossal size. Tyrannosaurus rex, about 70 million years ago. Its long skull was equipped with powerful jaws in which were set sharp, doubly serrated teeth. Weighing more than 4 metric tons, averaging 19 feet in height. This creature was believed to be one of the largest predators who ever lived on our planet.
Tyrannosaurus rex means everything to me. Okay, maybe that's a little extreme, but it's not that far off. Tyrannosaurus rex is what got me into paleontology. Yeah, at least in a narrow sense. When I was a little kid, I got some dinosaur toys, and I was so impressed by these weird creatures that I decided when I grew up I was going to be a dinosaur. And I decided if I was going to grow up to be a dinosaur, I'm going to grow up to be the king, because why not? So Tyrannosaurus rex was going to be it. And then my folks told me that's not an option. So I said, I will study them, and specifically I'll study Tyrannosaurus. And indeed, unlike most people, I stuck with the decision I made when I was 3 years old. But Tyrannosaurus is a really wonderful creature in that, first of all, it's literally superlative. It is, at present, the largest known carnivorous dinosaur. It is, therefore, the largest of the tyrannosaurs. It's the most extreme in almost every adaptation. In fact, the only adaptation it is not the most extreme, that is the most derived for, is the reduction of the forelimbs. Tarbosaurus actually has it beat there. It appears to have been the apex predator of its environment, which is an interesting thing. It was there at the very end of the age of dinosaurs, so it lived in extremely interesting times. It was feeding on some of the most wonderful other dinosaurs, Edmontosaurus and Triceratops. In fact, it faced Triceratops, arguably the most fearsome herbivore that the dinosaurs ever produced. It was not a slacker. I mean, Triceratops would have been an extraordinarily dangerous animal to have been around. And then, also, on a scientific end, we have more good specimens of Tyrannosaurus than we do of most other large-bodied dinosaurs. There are a few others we have more of. But Tyrannosaurus rex is rare in the case. We've got many excellent skeletons. Because of that, we can do better science on it than we can on a lot of other types of dinosaur species, because we have sample sizes. Maybe not quite to the statistical significant level that we would like, because it's actually not that level. We would like dozens more, if not hundreds more, to really get those stats down. But it beats Spinosaurus, for whom we do not have a single complete skeleton yet. And that's true of many dinosaurs. And because of that, if you've got multiple specimens, you can start to address questions like changes in growth, like potentially sexual dimorphism, like issues of within species variation, and so forth. And we can't do that level of science for a lot of dinosaur species, and that's a shame, because we'd like to know that. In fact, there's this online thought that, Tyrannosaurus is so variable compared to other dinosaurs. And I will ask you out there, which other species of dinosaur have you looked at in as many individuals? I mean, the online dinosaur fan community just simply hasn't looked at the hundreds of skulls of Triceratops out there. You got to do that before you make a statement that Tyrannosaurus is different. You probably haven't looked at as many Edmontosaurus skulls that are out there, which is another form for which we've got a good sample size. So if you're saying a statement about individual variation, you have to be able to compare it to comparable things. And it's just because Tyrannosaurus is such an amazing creature, and it's got a lot of good PR, and people happen to know the names of some of these specimens, that they have this image that they begin to see with that species, all the little variations in it. And if all you know about another species is a single skull or a pair of skulls or something, you think the Tyrannosaurus is really weird. But we don't know that yet. We do not know that its variation is unusual for other large-bodied dinosaur species.
It was part of my childhood. You know, I grew up watching, Jurassic Park, Walking with Dinosaurs, When Dinosaurs Roamed America, Land Before Time, all that. And every time it was ever on the screen, it stole the show. And why wouldn't it? Evolution created the most spectacular predator the world had ever seen. There's a reason why it's my favorite. It truly was the king back in its day. And the fact that, even now, it inspires, people, the fact that it, still has a sense of wonder, awe, and terror, it seems like it almost commands respect. That's why I love Tyrannosaurus.
T-Rex is one of those things that you think of dinosaurs, and it's probably the first thing that comes to mind. It is the quintessential dinosaur. For me, T-Rex is kind of like one of those first dinosaurs I think I ever remember seeing. My grandfather had me watch the first Jurassic Park movie when I was very young, and that scene of the T-Rex breaking out of the enclosure really stuck with me. It's one of those things that really pushed me to go into paleontology as a career. Of course, then you have the documentaries of the late 90s, early 2000s. I always remember loving watching Walking with Dinosaurs, the original one from 99, and just being in love with that T-Rex. Of course, you've also got Prehistoric Park with Nigel Marvin, you have When Dinosaurs Roamed America, just to name a couple others. There was almost always a T-Rex in every documentary that I ever watched growing up. And then you have the newer documentaries like Prehistoric Planet and the new Walking with Dinosaurs that show just how much T-Rex has changed in just the last almost 30 years thanks to all the new research that has come out. So seeing how much T-Rex has changed in the last 120 years really pushes me to want to be a better paleontologist. It is one of my great inspirations in my career. Not only is T-Rex my inspiration, I think it's also important to note that it is likely to continue to be the inspiration for future generations of paleontologists. That is what T-Rex means to me.
What Tyrannosaurus means to me is a representation of paleontology and paleomedia, our understanding of the science of it, and how it affects us as a culture as well, because its first depictions on the silver screen was, and King Kong was a kangaroo standing, reptilian scaled, ferocious monster, and recently in Prehistoric Planet, it now has a very fine feathered filament, a more leathery skin, and could be nurturing because we now know that dinosaurs and archosaurs as a general are more intelligent than we previously thought. And most kids, when they first get into dinosaurs, they learn about T-Rex. And that can really spark a passion that can last for who knows how long. Somebody like myself just absolutely loves paleontology. And that's what Tyrannosaurus means to me. It's just the understanding of life on our planet throughout the geological time and through our current time.
Well, I think for one thing is that imagining an animal that is the size of an elephant, and I've seen elephants before in person, imagining an animal that's the size of an elephant but is also hypercarnivorous is something we just don't have today. You know, the largest land predators we know of are polar bears, and they are nowhere near as big as T-Rexes. And from the sheer amount of knowledge that we have on T-Rex, that we have on their environment, that we have on their lifestyle, that we have on their life history, and from how impressive all that is, they've become so ingrained in our pop culture and mass media that when we think of dinosaurs, we think of T-Rex because of all of what we know about them. And what an incredible animal to have as, in many ways, a representative for Dinosauria. You know, T-Rex is the most iconic dinosaur, bar none, really. So, the largest land predator that's ever lived, that is bipedal as well, much more bird-like than they are mammal-like, having a very efficient respiratory system, hunted prey that were also just as large as elephants, but they had giant spikes on their heads, and there were animals like in Caiossaurus that they were eating that had tail clubs. Like, it's a world that no longer exists, and it's a world that will continue to fascinate us forever, because it's just something we don't have anymore. And just knowing that it's not fantasy, these animals were real, they existed. And now that they're gone and all we have is their bones, it's tantalizing to think about just how much was going on in the past that we just can never experience. And that's something we're always trying to look into, you know, like the human brain always craves knowledge, essentially. And it's just something we'll never fully know about. And that to me is one of the main reasons why I'm so fascinated by paleontology, is because I want to keep learning more. And there is always more to learn. I'll never run out of things to talk about, and there's always more things to learn.
Now you're gonna pay even more for what you've done to me!
Alright, Tank, here we go again!
What does Tyrannosaurus mean to me? That's an excellent question posed by Edge Science for the 120th anniversary of Tyrannosaurus being named. To me, the question is twofold. Firstly, what does it mean to me as a science communicator, someone who genuinely cares and studies science? Second, what does it mean to me as a person, someone who just genuinely loves Tyrannosaurus Rex and dinosaurs as a whole? As a person, T-Rex is nothing short of iconic. For me and many others all around the world, it's the dinosaur that got us into dinosaurs. Iconic doesn't even do it justice. When people think of dinosaurs, one of the first ones they think of is either this or Triceratops, and maybe Velociraptor if you've seen Jurassic Park enough. The sheer size and power of this animal is the stuff of every kid's imagination, and while some people don't really like the concept of fans of dinosaurs, we really wouldn't be anywhere we are today if we didn't have fans. No dinosaur has more fans than T-Rex, and while that can be an issue when folks don't want to accept new science as it comes out, overall it is a good thing. T-Rex has inspired me and many others to forge down this path of learning more and separating ourselves from just being a fan of some big monstrous animal and learning what it was actually like and what it did on a day-to-day basis. Sure, it's not my favorite dinosaur in the world, but it's undeniably the most famous and probably one of the most important because of how well studied this animal is. Which leads back to my first point. What does it mean to me as a person who genuinely cares about the science of this animal? To that end, it's still one of the most important dinosaurs. It's remarkably complete, with over 90% of the skeleton being accounted for. It's the center of a multitude of debates, both resolved and unresolved, and while that can sound like a bad thing, debates are actually incredibly good because it helps us push forward to understanding the animal better. On top of that, T-Rex is the pillar of comparison. Every other large carnivorous dinosaur is always compared to T-Rex in some way or another. Now, of course, that can be both good and bad, but overall it just sets the bar, it sets the standard, and that's what T-Rex is. It is without a doubt one of the most important, awe-inspiring, and absolutely brilliant animals that has ever lived.
A huge thank you to all who participated. I appreciate the time you carved out to send in a submission. You'll have to excuse me for not stating the names or handles of those who participated, since I will have been accepting submissions up until the very last minute. Hopefully those names showing up as the person speaks is acceptable. For more interesting stories about nature, the history of life, or what goes bump in the night, subscribe, like this video, drop a comment in the comment section below, and hit the bell icon to stay in the know with everything Edge. Thanks for watching.